Thank you. Good evening. I'm Councillor Tom Marino, the Chairman of the Joint Public Protection Committee, and I'd like to welcome you all to the meeting. Before we start, I'd like to explain for the benefit of the members of the public who may be watching that tonight's meeting is being held both over Microsoft Teams and with councillors present in the council chamber at Bracknell Forest Council. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so members of the public are able to follow proceedings. The other committee members physically in attendance are councillors John Harrison and Peter Hayden from Bracknell Forest Council and Councillor James Cole from West Berkshire Council.
All right.
That's fine. Councillor Porter is joining us remotely.
How do you turn this on, John?
Is it clear now? Sorry, I was trying to sort out the echo. I think it's gone now, actually. Okay. So, yeah, sorry. So, Councillor Porter is also joining us remotely. Members are being supported by a number of officers from the two partner authorities, including from the Public Protection Partnership, and they're in attendance either in person or remotely. For any votes, members of the committee in the council chamber are the only ones who can take part in the formal decision, and they'll be asked to vote by raising their physical hand. So we move on to item 1, which is apologies for absence. Stephen, have we got any apologies?
No apologies for absence, Chairman.
Great, thank you. So move on to item 2, the minutes from our previous meeting. Are members willing to accept the minutes from the previous meeting as an accurate record of the meeting? Are there any comments, or can I ask for a proposer and a seconder for those?
I'll propose them.
Great, thank you. And a seconder?
Not present.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, am I allowed to second those in that case, Stephen?
Yes, that's fine, thank
Great,
you.
I'll second those then. Members all in favour, please raise your hands. Great, thank you. Got their name on that one, that's fine. I'll sign those at some point later on.
Cheers.
So item 3, matters arising. Sean, can you provide us an update on the outstanding items from that, please?
Yes, Chairman. And before I do that, could I apologise for not being in the chamber? But I've been under quite a heavy cold actually the last few days, and thought it best not to bring it into the chamber with me. So yeah, just running through the matters arising. So from the 14th of March, the issue of defibrillators was discussed, sitting alongside the water safety cabinets, basically, which are being overseen by the Water Safety Partnership. We are looking at that. I have raised that with the Water Safety Partnership, and we're looking at whether defibrillators can be installed inside the current units. The performance framework, which was discussed on the 13th of June, it was delegated by the committee to myself to sign off in consultation with the chairman and vice chairman of the joint committee. That was signed off on the 24th of June. The Food Agency, a link to the Food Standards Agency ratings was included in the PPP website. So the social media posts basically have gone out circulating, encouraging residents to look at the ratings. And in fact, anybody that follows our social media will have seen some of those posts in the last week even. The PPP communications plan to be circulated to partner authority communications teams. That I can confirm that was done. And basically we attend those meetings, and then the terms of reference was
Sean,
so Councillor Bridgman.
Yeah, I'm happy
I
to
was
deal
just
with
about, I was just about to say,
exactly.
Moira, I was just about to hand that one over to you. Thank you.
So, Chairman and members, we took advice from the monitoring officer from West Berkshire after the last meeting, and they've confirmed that it would be permissible to reduce the quorum from 3 to 2 members. We've adjusted the terms of reference as well as the layout of the terms of reference to fit the new way that they will be done at West Berkshire Council. There's a new layout that will be followed. Sorry, James, I think your microphone might be still on. And what we would ask is that members at this meeting now propose and then vote on accepting that change so that the quorum can be reduced from 3 members to 2.
Okay, I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Can I get a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor Cole. All members in favour of that amendment? Great, thanks. That's carried then, Moira.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so is that it on matters arising? Okay, I'll take Sean's nod as a yes. That's the end of that one. So we'll move on to item 4, declarations of interest. Stephen, have we had any declarations?
None received in advance, Chairman.
Any from the floor? No, I don't think so. So move on to item 5, which is public questions. It's my understanding that we haven't got any public questions that relate to either a general issue or with the work of the PPP.
That's correct.
Okay, great. So move on to item 6 then, which is the forward plan. For members, please note that we will be adding an item update on partner authorities' investigatory powers to the December meeting as set out in paragraph 20.1 of the performance report. Are there any members, officers, any other additional changes that need to be made to the forward plan? Can't see or hear any. So I'm assuming there's no need to vote on that. We just move on to item 7, which is the revenue budget 2023-24, including proposed fees and charges schedule. I believe, Sean, you're going to take us through that.
Yes, Chair. So I'll take you through the revenue budget, then I will hand over to Moira to pick up on the fees and charges because she's done a lot of work around that. So just by way of background, this report comes to the committee every year, and the reason why it does so is that the inter-authority agreement between the authorities basically requires that the committee propose a budget, including fees and charges, back to the partner authorities. And the paper that's before you, the committee this evening, basically is the proposal around that budget. The proposal itself, in terms of figures, is set out at 5.17 of the report. And what I'll do is I'll just talk you through basically those figures. So effectively, what you've got is an increase there. You can see the increase between column 2, the 2022-23 revenue budget, and the 23-24 proposed base budget. And that increase primarily is made up of cost of living increases. So it includes basically salary increases from actually some additional salary increases that may well come through this year, over and above that was already budgeted, and any salary increase basically which is predicted for next year. And that makes up almost 100%, I would imagine, basically of that difference. There may be some minor adjustments around pension and things like that. That amounts to an uplift of 6.54%, excluding the pressure bid. So the pressure bids are one-off bids. So I say one-off, they are 2-year basically transition additional funding to deal with Wokingham, the fallout basically from Wokingham leaving the partnership arrangement. Some of the and that money basically has been identified for this year, for this financial year, and for the next financial year. So that is one-off, and then it will revert back to the 23-24 figure, basically in 24-25 plus any cost of living or inflation rises that are in there. And then finally, in column 5, I suppose it is, but the fourth set of figures is a service investment proposal. And that investment proposal is based around the employment of somebody, of an officer for 2 years to look at empty homes. So this fits in with both of the council's housing priorities. It also fits in with the work that the Public Protection Service does around private sector housing, but also actually some of the implications that arise from empty homes. So we do get complaints about the state of empty homes sometimes, and also the related nuisance matters and things of that nature. Moving down there, you've also got basically the Wokingham buyback arrangement. Effectively, so this is the money that they pay for the services which we provide jointly with Wokingham. And for those that were on the committee, they'll be familiar, were on the committee at the time, they'll be familiar with the fact that those include trading standards, some case management functions, some scientific functions around air quality, and some associated functions such as intelligence team and financial investigations. The only other thing to say on from my point of view on the revenue budget is that the ARIS money, so ARIS, for those that don't know, is the money that basically is any money that recovered under the Proceeds of Crime Act. This committee set out a policy back in 2017, in the very early days of the committee, about how that would be used. And it primarily is used for the purposes of prevention and detection of crime, fear of crime, and all of those, the matters that are set out in the policy. And the report is proposing that we stick with that policy. It's 5 years in, it's tried and tested. It's very important we have a policy so that we can't be accused as local authorities of seeking to basically pursue confiscation to prop up revenue budget. This is additional budget that is used for additional measures that fit the policy and not part of the general revenue budget. So I'll stop there. Do you want to pick up any questions, Chair, on the revenue budget before we move to fees and charges, which is, I suppose, part 2 of this?
Would members like to comment on the revenue first before we move to fees and charges and do them separately, or do you want to just take it all and then? Yeah, Peter, if you want to come in.
Are the hands working?
I saw it on Teams very briefly, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. It was just on the cost of living increase. What is, presumably the salary part of that is quite important. What increase has been allocated to salary increases, given that there's a fair amount of flux around that at the moment?
So, yes. So my understanding is that what we're looking at basically is, so there was 2% allocated for salary increase this year initially. I think we're looking at an additional 2% in this year, basically, and then 4% predicted for next year. But obviously, these matters are still under negotiation with the various bodies, with staff representative bodies, and with the employers as well. But if there are any adjustments to that, Councillor Hayden, those changes will be made before any revenue budget is set. Ultimately, what I would say is that the individual councils set their revenue budget. This is only a proposal that's put forward. Adjustments may well need to be made between the decision tonight and effectively the decisions of the councils in February, basically, to set their revenue budgets.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you.
Councillor Cole.
I understand the need for this sort of increase, but equally I'm aware that the West Berkshire budget is going to be very tight this year. One question, are you comfortable on the level of the Wokingham contribution?
Yeah, I mean, we have looked at it again this year. So the Wokingham contribution basically has been set up in relation to those services that we provide jointly with Wokingham, which are the primary one being trading standards. And the increase, basically the Wokingham budget, has been set at the same increase as the other two authorities, with the 6.4% overall increase in the revenue contribution to that. We obviously need to keep that under review and make sure that effectively Wokingham isn't getting more than their share of the service. But the 489, I believe, as it's set out there, does represent basically the cost of living increase associated with staff that provide those services.
Okay.
So before we move on to Moira about the fees and charges, so Kevin, you've got your hand up on Teams. Do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to answer Councillor Hayden's point about the staffing budgets, and just to give him assurance that in the Bracknell Forest inflation stroke staffing envelope, we will take account of whatever that comes out in terms of the TU work and make sure that that goes back into the Public Protection Partnership. So in effect, as director, I will treat it as just another directorate staff group and put the contribution in.
Okay, great, thanks, Kevin. So Maura, do you want to take us through the fees and charges?
So just in terms of the fees and charges, as Sean has said, the proposal is to increase the discretionary element of the fees by about 8.5%, which is slightly below inflation. It was agreed at the December 2017 JPPC committee meeting that we would pursue a full cost recovery model for fees and charges in the Public Protection Partnership. This has meant that for the first time in 3 years, we've had to increase the hourly rate that is set by the Public Protection Partnership. It's gone up from £59 to £64. And all our fees really are calculated based on time taken to administer an activity associated with a fee, and then that's multiplied by the hourly rate. there's two sets of fees within the fees document. There's the fees, which are marked in pale gold with a pale gold heading, and the discretionary fees, which have a blue heading in the document. We've standardised the fees across both Bracknell and West Berkshire Council now for the first time, and we've also retained the options that we included last year around the street trading consents. So if you'll recall, members, we included some additional options around weekly, monthly, 3 monthly, 6 monthly and yearly fees for those. Members after this, as Sean has said, will be asked to recommend these fees to their executive, and then each of their executives will follow their own budgetary consultation processes. The only exception to that is the private hire operator and hackney carriage and private hire vehicle fees, which have to be subjected to a statutory consultation process. And we will take that decision to each of the 2 licensing committees for the members to make a determination on those. If you've got any questions about specific fees, members, we'll be happy to take those now.
Great, thanks, Maura. Are there any comments or questions for Moira? Sorry, Sean, did you want to come in quickly before we open it up to members?
Chair, I was just going to add something, if I may, just on the whole issue of fees and charges and income. I think what we're now starting to see come through, and I was going to propose that I brought an update back to the committee in December when I bring forward the service update in December, is that we're now starting to see the implications of lost fees and charges coming through into the service lost income as a result of a number of businesses that effectively left the sector, for example, in terms of taxis and private hire during the kind of COVID period. So I was going to propose, just as an aside, that I would bring some indication back of the implications of that. But that has no implications, obviously, in terms of the fees and charges that we're proposing tonight, because they're based on cost recovery of a typical kind of licence within the grouping, say for a vehicle. But just to flag that up.
That's great, thanks, Sean. That'd be really helpful. So I've got Councillor Porter with his virtual hand up, then I'll come to the physical room after that if anyone has any questions. So Councillor Porter, if you want to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A couple of questions on the fees and charges, if I may. A couple of them refer to page 10. The first one is about the knowledge test going from £74 to £80. I know the knowledge test isn't all solely about going from A to B, but I was just wondering if Sean or Moira could re-look at that fee, because most people now use sat-navs, so that element of the actual knowledge itself test should, I believe, be removed, because that does seem a bit antiquated now, especially with sat-navs. And if you can just look at what is actually the other part of the knowledge test and whether or not that can actually be included in other parts of the fees that we actually apply. My other one is, again, unfortunately, I believe that the DBS fee of £84 is too high. The good news is that when the new policy comes in, most drivers will only be paying £13 a year. But to me, £84 does seem quite a lot to be paying for a DBS check. So it does seem as though we can just look at, again, our admin of if we can actually reduce our admin cost. I know we have to charge an admin charge, but it'd be nice if we could actually reduce that, please. One point I've got is change of address is going from £10.50 to £16. That does seem quite a jump. So I'm just wondering why that's jumped by so much. And then my final point is on page 12. We were trying to align street trading, and it's very nice that the Bracknell traders now have the option to have a year's trading. But I note that on West Berkshire, you don't charge for ice cream vans, or how do you actually treat your ice cream vehicles? Because in Bracknell, we actually charge, but it looks like it's non-applicable for West Berkshire. So I don't know if Sean could give us an update on how West Berkshire charge their ice cream vehicles, because if we are trying to make it that it's standard charges across both authorities, then if we can actually have a look at that as well, please. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. And Sean, if you want to come back on all of those, whether it's a mixture between the two of you and Moira, but if you want to try and answer those points.
happy to talk about the change of address.
Yeah, sorry, I think
Sort of
on my screen, I think Sean's kind of been frozen for a minute or so. So I don't know if he's trying to sort his connection out. So yeah, if you want to come in while maybe Sean tries to sort himself out more.
So the change of address is an activity that takes 15 minutes. So that's how that fee's been calculated. It's a quarter of £64. It's the £16.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah.
I know.
Chair, sorry, Chair, if I can just come back on that one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, it would have taken 15 minutes last year, and 25% of £59 wasn't £10.50. So does that mean we've been undercharging all this time?
That's my understanding, Councillor Porter.
Okay, so we're just trying to align the fees. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because we do one of the activities that's done annually is that we do look at the time recording against each of the activities, and we're hoping obviously that Tascomi is going to help us with that when it's introduced to make that even more accurate. While we're waiting for Sean to come back, the DBS fees, Councillor Porter, we did speak with the trade when we met with them on Monday, and we will go away and have a look at those again because it is a substantial increase. As you say, we hope that a lot of them will switch to the self-registration, which will only cost £13 a year for them to do. But anybody that has to take and just take a DBS check, something that is included in our new policy, will incur the higher charge. So we will go away and have a look at that. I really do need Sean to come back and explain about the ice cream vans and the knowledge test, because that's not something that I know an awful lot about.
So I can't see Sean's face on my screen. It does. I can see his name listed on the. It's gone from red to green on there. So sorry, James. I don't know if your points can. Things I want to bring you in, but I don't know whether it's going to relate to something that Sean needs to reply. But yeah, of course.
Moira, I cannot imagine spending 15 minutes to change an address.
The process. The information has to come in. It has to be verified. Then has to be uploaded onto the system. We don't charge. 15 minutes is the minimum time allocation that we attach to any one activity. There isn't a unit smaller than that. But if you'd like us to have a look at that, Councillor Cole, of course we can go away and look at that again.
Sorry, Councillor Hayden, did you have a comment you wanted to make there? Were you just musing on what you just heard?
Well, no, it just sounded like it actually is a minimum unit of charge, a bit like how solicitors operate. You know, if it takes less than 15 minutes, you still get charged 15 minutes because it's not practical to break that down. So, James, you look a little bit sceptical. It was a question, by the way. I wasn't talking with any authority on it.
That's my understanding as well, Councillor Hayden.
Okay, so I think we're still without Sean. I can see him as being green and available on like Teams, but obviously I don't know if he's having a problem getting back into the meeting or not. Because I mean, obviously.
Chairman, could I suggest that maybe we move on to the next item and come back to this, because
yeah, I think that would probably be a good idea. So we'll park item 7 for a minute, and we'll move on to item 8. We will come back, so we've got quite a lot of recommendations to vote on, but yeah, we'll move on to item 8 temporarily, which is the PPP private sector housing policy. Rosalind, I think you're going through that one with us, aren't you?
Yes, good evening, Chair. I'm going to go through the environmental health housing policy. So it's for 2022 to 2025. What I was going to do this evening was just give you a quick roundup of the main points of the work that the housing team are doing. So the environmental health housing team deal with housing issues from private rented sector and complaints from registered social landlords also. The work covers complaints about properties from tenants and also proactive work on HMOs, it's houses of multiple occupation, proactive work and reactive work with caravan sites and park homes. That's basically what our business as usual is. This year, the team have been very heavily involved with the Ukraine work, the Homes for Ukraine. project. They've been doing a lot of the inspection work of the homes and a lot of the welfare checks come through this team as well. So that's one of the main areas that has been worked on this year. So over the period of the policy that we're proposing, you'll also note that there's a number of public health related activities that we're taking on and that we'll be involved with. One of those is conversion premises. That's commercial to residential conversion premises. We've seen over the last couple of years, and especially over the last year, that there's many premises being converted to residential. They bring some issues with them. And what we want to be able to do is go from being reactive to those issues to proactively inspecting that genre of premises to ensure that they're fit for purpose. That ties in with the government's JIT, that's Joint Inspection Team programme for high-rise buildings, and it'll involve us working with building control, with Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service, and also with that joint inspection team to look at those premises. We also are carrying out a house condition survey. At present, we've tendered for companies to carry this out in West Berkshire, and we hope that we'll be able to do the same in Bracknell. So in West Berkshire, the house condition survey is going to be starting any week now, and we've got a company, BRE, to come in to do that. They do a virtual house condition survey, unlike the previous years where you would have gone round house to house and done a survey. They actually look at different information that's available and put it into a programme. So that should give us an idea of where we are with the stock in the borough and where we need to give our attention to. The other areas that come from that house condition survey are we want to do a lot of work with finding unlicensed HMOs, finding unlicensed caravan sites, and we're hoping that the house condition survey will highlight the areas that we need to go to find those premises as well. And basically we want to bring those premises to compliance. We also want to do a lot more work with landlords on Landlord Forum to open up the lines of communication and involve the landlords. We've participated in a Landlord Forum in West Berkshire and in Bracknell to date, and we're hoping the next one will be in this quarter in each area again. We're also looking into the benefits of running a landlord accreditation scheme across the area. So we're studying that to see how that will be implemented and what benefit that will bring. Work we are also looking at, and this relates to some of the work that Sean will be talking about as well, is the cost of living projects. So we're looking at things like damp and cold, and the involvement with that, with the council approach, to see if we can look at some sort of fuel poverty project. One of the other areas that's coming up for housing is the government's levelling up agenda. So that's looking at what's called decent homes. It's basically looking to ensure that private sector housing is up to the same standard as the registered social landlord and housing associations, because everyone has the legal right to a safe and warm home. So basically the decent home standards is looking at if any low quality rented premises are brought up to standard. So it's more, rather than the housing inspections that we carry out, it's looking at, for example, is a kitchen up to date? Is a bathroom up to date? There's a standard at the minute that says if it's over 30 years old, it needs to be changed in registered social landlords and in housing associations. And as I say, that's what they are going to be bringing in for the private rented sector. At the minute, we're in consultation about that, and they're talking about a 2-year lead-in. So that's something that we'll be starting to look at and get involved with the consultation. As I say, most of the changes from our 2020-2022 policy is to do with the public health work. We're also working on fit and proper persons with the caravan site licenses and the civil penalty work. We've got a couple of civil penalties going through at the minute. There's about 3 in total that we're working on. So that just gives you a flavour of what's in the policy. If there's any questions on that, or if you want me to talk more about any, just please let me know.
Great, thank Rosalind. Just obviously, Sean, I'm assuming you've made the assumption already, but we have temporarily parked item 7. We'll come back to it. Just wondering, obviously, in your absence. So we'll go back to that after we've completed this one here. So any members want to comment on this item or ask any questions? Yeah, of course.
I'll
Councillor
just make
Harrison.
a comment. I think this is particularly timely, as in Bracknell Forest we are about to do a member workshop and refresh our housing strategy and look at things like bringing disused housing back into use and how to ensure high quality standards. So it really is a good time to be looking at this, and I totally welcome it.
Great, thank Councillor Cole.
Thank you. That goes straight into a question I was going to ask. Do we know what the rough numbers of empty homes are in the 2 districts?
We have some information on it, but mostly from what we get through with reactive work. So we, as I said, we don't have a lot of information on that, but we're hoping that the housing survey will give us more information on that, and also leading into, I suppose, what Sean was talking about before with the empty homes work that we're going to be doing in the empty homes officer. So hopefully that'll all lead it. But I would say in the next 6 months or so, we'll have a lot better idea about just what the state is in the 2 boroughs.
Okay, well, it's a job that needs to be done, without a doubt. Was a little typo at the bottom of page 63. What is, this will allow areas of asked value to be carried out? What is that, what is that actually meant to be?
I'll have a look. I'll have a look.
Page 9 of the document, page 63, as page numbered.
Sorry, I have to go into the document because I'm in Teams at the minute. Do you want me to have a look at that and get back to you?
Sure.
Fine.
Are there any other comments or questions while Rosalind finds that little section? I can't see any in the room or virtually, so we'll wait for clarification on that, and then I think we'll move to recommendations. Oh, sorry, Councillor Porter, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just one quick question. If you're saying that if you come across any unregistered HMOs or caravan sites, obviously they're going to be registered. But what other enforcement action are you going to be taken against these people that have tried to get away with not registering such premises?
Yeah, the first thing we would do is make sure that they register. Some of the time, whenever we come across them, it's because the premises might be used as an HMO, but they're not within the definition of the HMO. So we would look into that to see whether it's an HMO that needs to be registered. But yeah, we would take whatever formal action we need against them then, and take that through with our case management unit.
Thank you, Chair.
I don't know if you've managed to find the answer to Councillor Cole's question yet, Rosalind.
No, sorry, I came back to on mic. I'll go back and have a look.
Members, are we happy to move to proposing a second, or do you want to know the answer from Councillor Cole before we move on? Okay, so going to need a proposer and a seconder for the recommendations as set out on page 51. Can I have a proposer in the room, please? Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Seconder, Councillor Cole. So members, are we happy to vote on this by raising your physical hands, please? Great, I think that's carried unanimously. So we'll move back then in that case to item 7. Sean, I think you had some questions to answer. Sorry, Councillor Head, I don't know if you want to clarify what exactly it was that's still outstanding to be clarified. I think one was about the knowledge, and I think there was something else, but I might be wrong. So on item 7, the questions that you're waiting for clarification, I think one was about the knowledge test, and I think the other one, I think there was another one.
Ice cream vans,
sorry, it was
Chair.
Councillor Porter. Sorry, I'm getting my Bracknell councillors mixed up.
That's right. Ice cream vans, Chair.
Ah, that was it. So yeah, so the knowledge and the ice cream van. Sorry,
Okay.
Sean, if you want to come in on those 2 points.
Yeah, I'll come in. So, yes, sorry about that. I lost my connectivity to the internet. So, just picking up on the knowledge test, I think the point you raised is a very good one. So, the knowledge test consists of 2 elements of it. One of them is an understanding of the law around running, effectively operating as a private hire or taxi driver. As a driver, and also basically the conditions and policies and that of the authority with respect to driving. And the second bit of it is the knowledge around directions and knowing how to get from one place to another. On the point that you raised on the second point, I think that is something I'll take away, Councillor Porter, and we'll have a look at that and see whether it's still necessary that we conduct that. And whether the length of the test effectively could be reduced accordingly, and that could have an effect on the fee. But I will also take away the second point that you made about whether basically whether even the other part of the knowledge test is something that could be delivered in a different way. So at the moment it is done as a kind of face-to-face thing. The drivers come into the office, they sit down, they have a certain set amount of time to answer a certain number of multiple choice questions, and then they have to achieve a certain score. I mean, it has worked, it's served well up until now, and a number of drivers pass, obviously, but others basically don't necessarily pass on the first time. But I'll take all of the points away, have a look at basically whether there is anything else, any other way of doing that, whether any more appropriate way for 2022 of doing that. And we'll come back and pick it up at the licensing committees about how that could potentially affect the fee. So that's the first one. The second point on the ice cream vans. So my dropping out has actually given me the opportunity to take a look at this. The simple answer is that West Berkshire do charge. So this is probably one of the very only varied fees that we've got between the 2 authorities now. What West Berkshire don't have, though, is a different fee to effectively the fee for normal street trading. So the West Berkshire fee for example, an annual fee for an ice cream van in 23-24 would be £1,487. So in fact, it's almost double effectively the fee that you have there for Bracknell. But that was a decision that was taken before our time, basically, to have a different fee for ice cream vans operating in the Bracknell area. And obviously that would be quite a big hike to raise it on go. So I'm happy to be guided by the committee on whether they would like us to do anything with those fees, or whether we come back again with some proposals, maybe ahead of next year.
Anyone else have any thoughts on that before we move on in the room?
Chair, if I may, is it possible for us to bring that to the Bracknell licensing meeting later on this month?
Absolutely.
And consider the option.
So we will, Moira, if we could add that to the items going to committee. So we'll bring basically a kind of update on both items, Councillor Porter, and it'd be good to get the views of the committee before. As I say, there is some way to go before these fees are finally set.
Yeah, it just seems strange that we treat an ice cream vehicle totally different to another vehicle that is selling, goods on the street. So
I suspect actually probably the history of this, and I don't know, is that obviously ice cream vehicles weren't always considered. There was to be street traders, and then some years ago they were brought within the street trading regime, and it may have felt at the time to go from 0 fee to this normal street trading consent fee to have been quite a big jump, but obviously that's many years ago now, and it is something that obviously the council may wish to look at again.
Yeah, I can give you a bit more information, Sean, on the 20th. That's fine.
Yeah, okay, brilliant.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Thank you, Chair.
All right, no worries. Thank you. Any members, any more questions or comments before we move to a vote on item 7? I can't see any. So we've got quite a lot of recommendations set out on page 23. Again, can I ask for a proposer in the room, please? Councillor Cole? Oh, well, I can do. I mean, I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Can I have a seconder in the room then in that case? Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Everyone, they could please vote by raising their physical hands. Great, I think that's carried. So we'll skip past item 8. We've done that already to item 9, which is the Bracknell Contaminated Land Inspection Strategy. And I think, Suzanne, you're taking us through that.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chairman. So the paper before you this evening is the proposed update to the Contaminated Land Strategy for Bracknell Forest Borough. The original strategy was approved in 2012 and reviewed by the Overview and Scrutiny Group back in 2017. So this report is a requirement under Part 2A of the Environment Protection Act 1990 as amended. The report has been thoroughly reviewed to include updates to legislation, any Bracknell Forest Council relevant strategies, and in relation to updated guidance since the original document was produced. There have not been any significant changes to the report, and it outlines the continuing approach by Bracknell Forest to dealing with contaminated land. So by way of introduction, just to update members or remind members that the council actually has 2 roles in this respect. Firstly, it's to undertake an assessment of its area for contaminated land through a strategic approach. And secondly, where contaminated land poses an unacceptable risk to health or the environment, is to ensure that the contamination is remediated to reduce the risk, using a terminology that you may have heard of called the polluter pays principle. So back in 2012, when the first report was produced, Bracknell Forest had already carried out its prioritisation exercise and given a risk score to a number of sites, of which some had suspected contamination and some sites have been remediated through the planning process. We will continue to use the planning process to achieve remediation. The environmental quality team of PPP regularly review planning applications and apply contaminated land conditions where necessary as part of a redevelopment process to ensure that the site is suitable for its reuse and prevent an inaccessible risk from pollution. In the production of this reviewed strategy document, it has been through internal consultation, and notably comments were made by colleagues in development control, and they've been included in the report.
Okay, so do any members have any questions or comments they'd like to make on this item? Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Chairman. I read with interest. I look for West Berkshires. That comes up as 2014, albeit 3rd revision. Was it considered to do a joint effort?
No, it's quite a specific requirement for a local authority to have its own strategy. And as within PPP, we've started with Bracknell, that's before you this evening, and work has already started on reviewing the West Berkshire strategy, and that should be with this committee within this municipal year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members, either in the room or online? Sorry, Damon, I don't know if you want to come in.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think it's just worth pointing out that in terms of this Bracknell Forest policy, it will go through the executive cycle, and so will be signed off if it's approved at the November executive at Bracknell Council. And I'm assuming once the West Berks policy is written, it will follow the same process within West Berks. So this is one step on the journey to formal approval at executive. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you, Damien. I can't see any hands either virtually or in the room, so I'm very happy to propose from the chair the recommendations are set out on page 83. Can someone in the room second that for me, please? Councillor Harrison, thank you. So I'd like to ask members to vote on the acceptance of the recommendation by physically raising their hands. Okay, that's unanimously carried as well. So in which case we'll move on to item 10, which is the Public Protection Partnership Service Update and Quarter 1 report for 2022-23. And Sean and Moira, I think you're taking us through that.
Thank you, Chair. So I will pick up the service update, and Moira, I'll hand over to Moira to answer any questions or pick up the performance report. So I won't go through the whole document. It's a document that seems to grow every time we bring it, but it gives a pretty good feel for the range of work that is going on in the service. For example, and obviously some of that has been touched on tonight with the contaminated land strategy and the housing work. But if you look at basically the whole document, the document as a whole, it gives you a breakdown of all of the work going on in the various teams, and a very good flavour of that. So just picking up on some of the broader issues. So on finance, basically there are issues I've mentioned around income which aren't mentioned in here, but we will need to come back to those, and I'll bring that back in the next paper that we've got. There will be basically, I think at the moment I've done some budget monitoring work today again, and we are looking basically at some degree of managed underspend, and part of that is to do with the fact that some of the staff time is actually now being devolved to other areas. So effectively some time which is chargeable, for example, to the Homes for Ukraine work is being charged to that because they're doing work in relation to inspections, and that would include actually also some of my time. Some of the really positive things in here, I just want to talk about the issues around staffing. So as you know, as the committee knows, that we 2 or 3 years ago, a couple of years ago, we were pretty well fully staffed. We then basically reached a point, obviously we lost a number of staff to Wokingham, which obviously we needed to do to balance our budgets as well. But actually we did find ourselves at the beginning of this financial year with a number of vacancies. We have filled a couple of those vacancies now. So we had a new trading standards officer start in that team. And we are advertising at the moment for another environmental health officer, another animal health officer, and hopefully basically we will be able to recruit into those posts in the next few weeks. But I think one of the real positives is that we talked at previous committee meetings of this committee about investing in staff and the need to grow our own, given how difficult the recruitment is of qualified staff. So to that end, we have now recruited 2 level 4 regulatory trainees or compliance officers. So these people will be training in the first instance to be generalists within the service and picking up matters across all areas from trading standards, environmental health and licensing. And then in due course will be given the opportunity potentially to specialise down one of those particular routes. But we see basically having at any one time a number of people training at that level really key to getting a lot of that, not less important, but maybe work that can be done by people that aren't necessarily fully qualified officers. We also said we would look at how we would grow our own staff, and we've just gone through an expressions of interest process, and I'm pleased to say that 6, and I think it might now be 7, Moira, existing staff have come forward with a view to developing their own knowledge base in line with kind of service need, and looking at apprenticeships at both level 4 and level 6. So we're going through a process now to make sure that that it works for them, and also that it works for the service, and in due course obviously the authorities and the communities they serve. So we have been engaging staff on all of this. So as you can see at 8.1, we did have a first full staff get together basically back in June, and in fact myself and Damien actually did an update on that to staff actually only on Monday as well, where we were with some of those things around staff development and growing our own. Moving on to just 1 or 2 other kind of cross-cutting issues, ICT section 9. members of the committee will have been known that we've been talking about a single system for, I think, years, basically. And we are now at the stage where effectively we are optimistic, I'll put it that way, that we will be able to go live by the 31st of October this year. Currently, basically, the data has been transferred. Our access to the current systems is currently down, so we're having to do a lot of work manually, but clearly there comes a point in all of these data transfers where you have to pick a moment in time, and then we will need to update the new system afterwards, assuming it goes ahead. Assuming that we're able to go live on the 31st, and to that extent, basically training sessions as part of the whole arrangements have been arranged for staff. They started yesterday. They are running basically over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and with a view to getting everybody ready to use the new system. Rosalind talked about basically the accommodation checks and the additional work programme. So we have been doing some work around accommodation checks for the Homes for Ukraine scheme. That did go a bit quieter, but actually we have found ourselves doing a few more recently, and we will need to do more in due course as we reach the 6-month point actually for a number of hosts and guests, where basically a number of guests will be potentially moving on to new hosts at that 6-month point, and that will be the next few weeks for some of those guests and hosts. Another big piece of work, actually, another piece of work we have been looking at, and we've been looking at the services response to cost of living. As a public protection service, that there isn't much. There aren't many aspects of the lives of residents and businesses actually that the service doesn't touch. We believe as a service we have a contribution to supporting people through this current period and supporting businesses as well, and we're just mapping that out. And also basically at a more strategic level in West Berkshire, we're looking at basically the wider response, and my intention is to talk to colleagues in Bracknell who we've worked very closely with on COVID, who we've worked very closely with on Homes for Ukraine, with a view to working very closely with on the cost of living response, basically the authorities, and see what joint learning there is, and in fact what joint provision there potentially is for the two officers, the two authorities. Very quickly, a couple of other highlights, just the work at 14.2 and 14.3 of the events that took place to support the Water Safety Partnership, and they were very successful, well-attended events, and we carried out 6 of those. We had intended to carry out more of those, but a couple of them basically had to be cancelled, but 6 events, and we'll keep that programme running into the next year. And then finally at 20, the legal update. Bracknell Forest and West Berkshire Council were jointly inspected by the Investigatory Powers Commissioner's Office a few weeks ago. We got very positive reports, but we will be bringing to this committee a full report, basically an update on that. And in fact, the fact that we had brought a report to this committee previously about surveillance and the use of CCTV was welcomed by the Commissioner. And then finally, basically a number of recent legal actions that have been taken. And you can see in there that there was a whole range of things from underage sales to some unfair trading matters, and in fact actually basically and some unlicensed trading matters, puppies, and in fact even a couple of custodial sentences, one immediate 38-month imprisonment in a Bracknell case, and a 15-month imprisonment suspended sentence in a Wokingham case. There's only one case on here for West Berkshire at the moment. That's just kind of the way it works. Basically, sometimes there is a difference between authorities. It just happens to be when the cases fall within the court system. So we'll continue to bring that update, but that hopefully for the committee members has given a good flavour of where the service is. Thank you.
And just in terms of the actual performance monitoring, this was the first time that members will have seen the new framework. This is the framework that we agreed at the previous meeting, and that we had discussions with members from the 2 individual authorities. We're still in the process of collecting some of the baseline data because some of the measures are new. and we will continue to develop that as we go through the year. Although some of this information was previously presented to members, it was usually for all three authorities. So you will see for some of the data will look quite skewed, where there'll be about a third reduction. When you look at a like-for-like comparison, it's quite difficult to do because of the skewing of Wokingham data being included. In addition, also with some of the data, you'll see that we used to report commercial and non-commercial or business and residential information together, and we've now separated that out. So as I say, it's quite difficult sometimes to do a full like-for-like comparison, but that we will get on with that in due course.
Sorry, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Maura. Any members wish to speak on this? Councillor Hayden.
Thanks, Chair. There are 2 points actually. When you were talking about the additional hardships caused by the cost of living, Bracknell Forest actually has a members' welfare steering group. Presumably they're relevant in terms of what the PPP are doing. Can I just ask whether that is being coordinated?
Yeah, so don't know whether Sean or Maura, which one of you wants to come back on that, but.
Well, I mean, what I would say, so I mean, West Berkshire have a similar one. It's a subgroup of the that was approved this week, which is a subgroup of its Health and Wellbeing Board. All I would say, Councillor Hayden, is I am more than happy to come and talk to that group to talk about the work that, as a service, that we are doing to support residents and some of the potential risks that we've identified, and what we're doing basically to provide support through that and advice. So very, very happy to attend if members at Bracknell would like me to.
Right. Do you want to leave that with me? Because the person who's been doing most of the work is an officer called Katie Stevens. So I'll take an action on that to speak to Katie and then put her in contact with. Who should I address it to? To you, Sean?
Yeah, so I've been in touch. Is Katie Stevens? So the other name I've got that's dealing with this at Bracknell is Katie. I think Katie Flint. But yes, yeah, absolutely. If you ask Katie Stevens to contact me, and
Katie Flint will be fine.
Yeah, and then basically, so I've made contact already with Bracknell to ask about how we can coordinate this, and because we've learned so much basically over the COVID stuff and also the Ukraine work that we've been doing from each other.
Then I had a second point where you said that there was an underspend, and some of that was because of resources being diverted to Ukraine. Is there a risk that there might be an environment to transfer some of that underspend to another budget heading? So your underspend actually disappears, so you don't have anything to carry forward.
No, so effectively, basically, this committee. So we've had this happen for 2 or 3 years running, actually, because of basically, obviously, a lot of staff were redeployed into COVID work, and obviously that was funded out of COVID grant funding. There is some basically redeployment now into work around Homes for Ukraine. We have to manage an underspend generally anyway, because obviously we need to manage some of the risks around income and everything else. But actually, the way it works with the Public Protection Committee is that effectively it is for this committee to determine how any underspend is dealt with. And we come back basically with a proposal. So there was an underspend last year which we brought in that I talked about there, the 145,000. We then came to this committee in June 2022, and they agreed that that money should be carried forward. If there is an underspend at the end of the year, if £100,000 is where it turns up, it could be less than that, it could be a bit more than that, then effectively we would come back to this committee as its meeting probably in June next year when we got the outturn to ask them out to determine how they wish to use that, what they wish to do about that underspend.
Just one point. When I said Katie Stevens, that's me getting my Katies mixed up. It actually is where are we? The Katie Flint.
Funny enough, I actually emailed Katie Flint actually today, Councillor. So I will raise that point with her if you like about attending that group, if that's what Bracknell members would like us to do.
I'm very much on the side of this, and so if
That's where we'll definitely know that as an action. Yeah, Councillor Cole.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. On the similar subject of the underspend on page 146 or maybe 150 if you're using the paging through the document. Third line down we have 100,000 underspend, and below that we have Sean. What does that mean there? Sean, your name, sir.
Yeah, in the cell below the 100k underspend, next to IAA.
Apologies.
Myra, I haven't got Sean on the version I've got here.
Apologies, Chairman. That the reason for that is because I've used the template, and the template means that Sean's the person I'd get the information from. So I have to fail to remove Sean's name, and the information is in there.
Do we happen to have the figure to hand?
No, that is the figure.
Oh.
The underspend is 100k.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's just the way it's been formatted.
Yeah, it's a slight formatting issue then, that's fine.
I think it was Moira's prompt to basically remind me to basically put the latest figure in there.
Right. Let's move on. Sean, there's lots of good results in here. What you might think that perhaps that the IT has taken quite a long time. Is this the same system that you and I were looking at about 3 years ago?
It is. I mean, obviously, it wasn't. Basically, we were looking at options 3 years ago. I mean, obviously, the contract and the tendering process wasn't 3 years ago, but it is substantially. It is a long way overdue now, basically, because of the issues we've had primarily around the data transfer. So obviously, we're on the 6th round of that of testing, and but we're optimistic we've got there this time, and we will have a single system basically by the end of this month, which will be transformational really in terms of service delivery, because at the moment we're operating on 3 systems. So we've got Wokingham data, Trading Tunnels data on one system, and then we've got 2 other systems with the Bracknell and West Berkshire data on. So, and the other advantage of the new system is it's cloud-based, and we won't have some of the issues about getting into different authorities' networks.
It should be wonderful. So let's hope it really does work. Sean, you don't mention any other failures in this document. Were there any other failures? What keeps you up at night?
Sorry, I missed the very first part of that.
There's lots of good results in here. I was asking what the failures were. I'm asking you what keeps you up at night.
It's a good question. I think the biggest challenge for the service right now is staffing. So it's in terms of basically recruitment. It's not so much retention. We don't lose very many staff, but basically if we ever do lose staff, recruitment proves very difficult. But actually, we've been through a lot of challenges as service really over the last few years as local authorities, as society has. So, I mean, obviously we had 2 years basically of doing work around COVID, and we've provided significant support to all 3 authorities around the operational response to that, about businesses, support for residents, contact tracing, outbreaks, and a whole range of things. Since March, basically, we went immediately onto we went from the COVID response basically to assisting with the implementation of the Homes for Ukraine scheme, and then more recently, basically onto the cost of living related issues that we're working through at the moment as a service, and seeking to assist the communities and the authorities with the response to that. I think we do cover a lot. I would say this, but I'm immensely kind of proud of what we kind of cover, Councillor Cole, and actually the biggest risk is just, I think, basically if I had to name one thing that I think presented a risk, it is around recruitment and retention, but primarily around recruitment.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I think we all recognise recruitment's a bit of an issue nationally. If it does reassure you, Councillor Cole, about the IT system, we did have a meeting when I came in with the organisation involved and made sure to put them on blast, to put it politely. So hopefully this time around we are more successful. Any other members want to come in at all? Councillor Hayden, is that a legacy hand? I think they're calling it nowadays. Or no, that's fine.
Chair, just before we move on, I just wonder, can I? So this was a report format that we've developed over time, where effectively we found members found the narrative useful as well as the facts. Can I just check? Can I just ask? Is this still what the committee are looking for? We've had a few changes on the committee, but in terms of the report format and everything else, does it provide the committee with what the committee needs really to perform its role?
I think so. I've had a nod from Councillor Cole. I'm seeing agreement within the room, so I think we're happy with the report in its current form. It's definitely very informative, that's for sure. Makes good reading.
Thank you.
Okay. I haven't got any other hands virtually or physically, so I'm happy from the chair to propose the recommendations as set out on page 127. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Cole. Can members please... Oh, the recommendations to note, actually, there's no need to vote, so no need to put your hands up this time. So we'll move to item 11, which is the Air Quality Status Reports 2021. I think, Suzanne, that's you again.
It is, thank you, Chairman. So what you've got before you in this paper is the update from the Bracknell Forest and for West Berkshire. The annual status reports which were submitted within the timescale to DEFRA, covering the calendar year 2021 data. Just to note that under the inter-authority agreement with Wokingham, we still perform some air quality function, and that includes the monitoring and the development of the air quality status report for Wokingham. That has also been completed and submitted to them, so we have fulfilled our obligations there. So just to note, it's obviously quite a long report, and the appendix includes the full reports and the appraisals back from DEFRA. I think it's just key to note that 2021 we were still dealing with the effect of COVID and some lockdowns, and obviously from an air quality point of view it meant that it was the second year of differing patterns of air pollution, and we can see that from the results that we've got. So the 2021 levels were higher than 2020 as was expected, but the 2021 levels did not exceed the pre-COVID, the 2019 levels. So overall for the two boroughs, two districts, the results show that we've shown a decreasing trend over the last 5 years. So within the paper, section 7 covers Bracknell Forest. It's the results and the comments back from DEFRA for the annual status report. And we note that the air quality action plan for Bracknell requires a further, more in-depth review. And as a team, we've already started working on that. So in the report, section 8 covers the West Berkshire results and the commentary back from DEFRA, and the fact that the air quality management area for for West Berks also needs to be reviewed. So the reviews of the action plans will involve working internally with our colleagues in highways and transport and public health colleagues.
Great, thank you for that. Any members want to come in and comment? Question, Councillor Cole?
Looks pretty good, that report. They make a couple of comments about some technical changes needed. The only thing I found a bit sad was that both Bracknell and West Berkshire schools were rather slow to sign up to the anti-idling exercise. I can see that Bracknell Forest Council clearly expects this to improve. I have no doubt West Berks does as well. What can we do about this?
So, Councillor Cole, what you're talking about there is some of the work under the current DEFRA project. The intention was to monitor PM 2.5 as close to schools in or close to the air quality management areas as possible. There's just been a few hiccups with actual siting of the equipment. So where schools have not accepted the equipment be on their school premises, we've installed the equipment as close to their premises as possible.
So you're getting a good enough result, you believe?
We are. I mean, obviously the distance we're not talking about, you know, we're not even talking about 100 metres, so it is in very close proximity.
Okay. It's certainly something that is of considerable interest to schools and parents in West Berks, and I'm sure it is in Bracknell.
And also with this project obviously covers Wokingham as well. So we have seen across the 3 authorities some locations where the equipment is not on school premises, but it's very close to.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison.
Yes, I'm seeing that. I think we were waiting previously to get a response from DEFRA, and it was starting to get a little bit worrying as to whether or not they were going to come back, or whether they were going to come back with some negative comments, and they needed to look at it in more detail. So it's actually quite good that this report's come back, and they've been quite complimentary about what's been done in terms of both councils. I do note from that report that actually, when it comes to air quality improvements and measures that we've taken, that some of the things that we've had a lot of flack on social media for, such as removing some roundabouts and replacing them with signalised traffic, have actually been complemented and have made a big difference to reducing the amount of pollution on those routes, and it's quite gratifying that I think we've been proved right in the end.
Yeah, I must say I was very pleased with the comments made by DEFRA as well on that. So I'm not seeing any other hands virtually or in the room, so I'm happy to propose from the chair the recommendations set out on page 159. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Harrison. So members, could you please vote by raising your physical hands? Great, thank you. That's carried. So item 12, any other items that the chairman considers to be urgent? Just one more, actually. Can we get an answer for Councillor Cole's earlier question about that particular typo in the report? Or are you happy to have that emailed to you at a later date, Councillor Cole? Or Rosalind, do you have that to hand before we finish?
The typo, it should have said added value. So the D's had been replaced by S's. Apologies for that. I'll get it changed in the document.
Great, thanks for that. I haven't got any other items that I consider urgent. So that's our business concluded for the evening. Thanks